Hello, I'm Nicholas Johnston. I'm the publisher of Axios. We're going to do a little quick chair swap here, but thank you so much for joining us today. This is such an opportune topic. If it weren't so hot outside and I weren't in a suit, I probably would have used an e-mobility solution to get here today. Maybe I'll take one home when I don't worry about the weather so much. And so I think this is a really timely thing to talk about. We're so grateful for all of you here, Axios readers and supporters, for being here. And of course, we're hugely grateful to our partners who make everything possible at Axios. So a huge thanks to UL Standards and Engagement for supporting us tonight. And so I'm very excited to welcome to the stage for a view from the top conversation, David Martin, who is Director of Government Engagement, and Dr. Denise Durant, who is the Director of Data Science and Standards Engineering. Denise and David, welcome to the Axios stage. So let's start big picture here. Like, this is a logo I think all of us recognize and are somewhat familiar with, but maybe we could dig in a little bit more to start about like what UL Standards and Engagement is as a nonprofit that works on safety standards. And maybe Denise, you want to give us like a scene setter, perhaps?
Yeah, definitely. I think when most people see the symbol UL, you think about the sticker or the tag that you see on a lot of the different products in your home or when you're out and about. And we are a part of the UL enterprise that focuses on developing standards. So we develop standards through a consensus-based process. We convene subject matter experts from a variety of different fields. And our goal is to ensure that we are developing standards that provide guidance to the testing, manufacturing, and product designers to ensure that when products are introduced to the marketplace or as products are evolving, new technologies are emerging, like in the case of e-mobility, that there's guidance to ensure that these products are safe. Because the last thing that we want, if you think back to 2015 when that hoverboard came out, is for people to go out there, buy this cool new product, and guess what? It's not necessarily safe.
We have a colleague who puts it really well. She calls standards safety directions, which is exactly what they are. And what makes them so rigorous in our case, in ULSE's case too, is that they're continually revisited to keep pace with the change in technology.
I mean, that's the point, I think, of new technology, which is great. And I think so let's narrow this focus a little bit to the technology we're talking about e-mobility. Like, we probably walked around them on the sidewalks. We saw people using them. They're relatively new. There's a lot to learn. Tell us a little bit of that from your viewpoint. What are the misconceptions? What should we know?
Yeah, so I'll start by saying, being in DC in this area, I will say that the landscape for something as simple as an e-bike is totally different than where I'm from in North Carolina. You don't see a lot of e-bikes, but what we know is that regardless of what that, landscape looks like, the safety challenges associated with these products doesn't change. And so what we know about e-bikes, what we know about a lot of products that are incorporating batteries is that really, because of that lithium-ion battery, there are some safety risks. And introducing, electrified forms of transportation doesn't necessarily mean that we can introduce like new hazards to the marketplace. We don't want to do that. And so really when it comes down to these e-mobility products, we know that the lithium-ion battery, again, introduces a level of risk that we have to be aware of. We'll talk a little bit about what some of those are, but primarily what most of you have probably seen in the news is battery fires. Related to e-bikes, related to e-scooters. Understanding what those are, how those are caused. If we had a whiteboard up here, it would be dangerous for me. But understanding...
Stick around afterwards at the bar and we can go into it more, right?
But knowing the science behind these products is important, but understanding how those products can interact with different things with different users is important as well. And as standards developers, those are all inputs that go into what goes into that standard and how that standard can ensure safety.
And two more misconceptions too. There's kind of this idea that this is a New York City problem. It's not just a New York City problem. It's really present everywhere. So it's really important that cities and states start really taking a hard look at this issue. I think another one is that, it's just wealthy people buying these expensive e-bikes and e-scooters or whatever the device is, and that's not true either. Actually, according to our data, shows that over half of the consumers who purchase these devices are actually doing so for work purposes. So that's really key that we're maintaining access for those people to carry out their daily lives.
So it's a potentially much bigger issue than maybe people just assume it is. Well, so like, we don't have a whiteboard here, but it's like, what's the best you can do as far as like walk us through a little bit what we know so far, what you're thinking about, what's over the horizon that you're more looking into?
Yeah, so definitely when you think about batteries, specifically lithium-ion batteries, one of the primary risks is something called thermal runaway. And you've probably seen that on the news. You've probably heard about that. But simply put, Thermal runaway is this phenomenon where that battery enters a state of uncontrolled self-heating. Uncontrolled self-heating means that that battery has generated a whole lot of heat and energy, and it's trying to release it. So for something like an e-bike, we don't want that to happen because that can result in fire and explosion and the release of toxic gases. And when you think about e-bikes and where they're used and how they're stored and how they're charged, those are significant safety factors that we have to be aware of, and then we have to find solutions like standards that actually address those hazards to ensure that the public is safe.
Where are we on that standard journey? And I'm not asking just because I'm here on stage. I'm asking because I literally might ride one of these home, and now I just want to learn a lot more about what those potential risks are, and like walk us through like the steps we're at to where we can get to a place where we really are truly safe.
So I can go on and on.
Let's do it.
But what I'll say first is, our standards are always on a journey, because I think there is an aspect to developing a standard to address an initial need, and sometimes that need is there's a whole lot of incidents out there, so how do we resolve that? But then there's also the aspect of these products are evolving. So there's standards out there right now that might cover a bike, but we don't have those standards within our portfolio. We have the standard for e-bikes, electric bikes. And so the standards are having to respond to these new technologies. And I think one of the most important things is if you look across our ULSC portfolio, there's over, the number changes depending on who you talk to. But right now, I think there's over 1,500 standards in our portfolio, ranging from something as simple as a life jacket to an e-bike or an e-scooter to a lithium-ion battery. What's important is how are those standards actually addressing the safety risk in a relevant fashion? They're very comprehensive. Some would say, these standards are too complex because as a manufacturer, as a product designer, I'm having a hard time getting this to market because the standard has all of these different things that I have to comply with.
And part of that life cycle as well is just the awareness and education. So we appreciate smart consumers who are aware that, it's one thing if you go outside and you rent a scooter and you ride it from point A to point B, you drop it off, you're done. But if you're purchasing one of these things that's going to go in your home, you're going to charge it yourself, you may charge it at work, then really make sure that you're educated about the standards that it should meet and make sure that's the safest device possible.
Are there solutions that exist now? What is working as far as addressing some of these concerns?
In addition to understanding the safety, the science behind, lithium-ion batteries and e-bikes, the other thing that we try to understand and, bring more awareness to is consumer sentiment. So our research team at ULSC, they have done an outstanding job of helping us understand what consumers know about these types of products. And so I'm going to spit out a few statistics here because I think this is important for the topic. But not just the science, but understanding awareness. We know that there are significant awareness gaps when it comes to products that employ lithium-ion batteries. So what has helped us is understanding what do people know. Our research shows that about half of the people that own an e-bike have no idea that it's powered by a lithium-ion battery. On top of that, almost half of e-bike users who charge their device at home charge it in front of an exit, which again introduces another significant safety risk. Knowing that, we can ensure that the standards are comprehensive and address some of these things.
We're also starting to see some solutions emerge, we think, too. So, for example, in 2023, I think in September, New York City passed a law that would regulate the purchase and the sale of lithium-ion battery e-bikes and e-scooters. It actually requires those devices to conform to our standards. And in 2023, there were 18 deaths, and not injuries, there were deaths due to lithium-ion battery fires. And so far in 2024, there's been only one. So, again, it's just encouraging folks to take that look.
So before we get the hook here, what I love doing these events in DC, only here can you get standing room only to talk about e-mobility. I love the policy crowd here. Give them some homework. How can they help?
I would say, before you ban devices and ban new innovations and technologies, take a look at standards. There is a great system where companies come together, the best and the brightest, but also experts in academia and consumers, and they create these rigorous voluntary standards that keep people safe. So it's not always a matter of regulation or bans. We can do something in between.
Denise, what's your homework assignment for everybody?
Definitely. UL has 3 standards. specifically related to e-bikes, e-scooters, and the batteries that are used in those products. So 2849, 2271, 2272. We have a lot of great resources out there about those standards. Would love for you all to take a look at that on our website, learn more about these things so that we can truly drive change and advance safety.
And Denise will be out on the balcony afterwards with her whiteboard,
Yes.
going through the science.
Bring the whiteboard in.
Denise, David, thank you so much for being here. Thanks
Thank
to UL
you.
Standards and Engagement for making today possible. Stick around. I'm going to bring Nathan Bomey up to close the show.